start a landscaping company that transforms people's yards into flourishing ecosystems. And so we've been talking over the last few months about this idea and trying to get it down on paper, get it organized enough that he can recruit people into a group to start working on it. So we're at the end of this process. This is actually the last session in this consulting package that I've got underneath me here, Regenerative Enterprise Design. We've been going through these questions, and I've been using that to fill out a business model canvas for him. And we're in the last session of that. And at the end here, we'll talk about next steps. Kind of the topic of today is next steps. And we'll talk about what we can do next, because I want to stay involved in this project. I want to keep working on it with them and whoever else is going to come on board. So yeah, we're looking at recruiting some people and making this more of a group conversation. So if you are interested in getting involved in this, please jump in the chat right now. You can message us whether you're on Facebook or YouTube or Twitch. Go ahead and type in there, and I will be able to see it right here in front of me, and we will engage with you, our audience. Or you can message me after the fact. You can join my Patreon page, or just, leave a comment on my Facebook or message me on Facebook is a good way to get a hold of me. Yeah, we want more people to get involved. So yeah, before we jump into talking about next steps, let's do a quick check-in. How you doing, David?
I'm doing all right. It's been cold here, so I haven't been out very much, and that's what I like to do, is be out in my gardens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Yeah, me too. I did get out to the garden yesterday morning. Was it? No, day before yesterday, Saturday morning. I was out at the Earth Garden here and actually taught my class on soil science and had some people show up. Haven't been advertising it publicly. I've just had a few volunteers showing up, but there were actually 4 people there, so we didn't have anything else to do. So I went ahead and gave them all the download on the soil science that I know. And then we also made some Korean natural farming inputs. We've been working on the OHN tincture. Have you heard of Korean natural farming, David?
No, I don't think I have, but I may have run across it, but no information on what it entails.
Yeah, it's fermenting your own inputs, basically. And so the one we're working on is a tincture of cinnamon. I've got it right here. Cinnamon, licorice, garlic, ginger, and angelica. Yeah. And then
so that feeds your microbes in some way?
It helps. There's lots of different inputs. Some of them are more for nitrogen and probiotics. This one is to help digest. So like the ginger, it's good for digestion. So is the licorice, and also the garlic, for kind of killing off the bad bacteria without killing the good bacteria. So it's the medicine for the plants. Okay. You just dilute that in the water. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. Lots of fun. Okay, so getting down to where we are at in this lovely worksheet, going down. Let's see. It's so long. Okay, last time we were talking about impacts and how to measure them and increase them. And today we're talking about next steps. So, yeah, I don't want to be too mechanical here because I don't think the wording of these questions is going to get us where we need to go. But basically, like, what's the next thing that you're going to do, and how is it going to be an experiment to give you information about the best way to move forward?
All right, so where we are is we have 1 active gardener and 22 people who have said they're interested in becoming a gardener. So our experiment is to get people out of the comfort of their living room and out into the gardens, which is a little bit difficult at this time of year. Although I've got, 8 people who have signed up to be interested in being homeowners hiring gardeners. And so we've been trying to match those 2 together. And I got a notice from Chip Drop saying that now is the best time to order your wood chips, because when it comes to be spring, there's going to be a lot more demand and it'll be longer waits to get your wood chips. So I'm thinking about writing to my homeowner list and suggesting that if they've got a plan for building a deep mulch garden, that now would be the time to at least get the materials in sight. And then, here on the Front Range of Colorado, we get warm days, any time of the year. So we could start building gardens as soon as it comes above freezing, which, we get the Chinooks coming over the mountains and warm things up. And it's great time to be building gardens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks. I'm a little distracted. I did hear everything you said, but Google is being stupid. They changed it. And it's doing something stupid. Okay, I'm fixing it. There he is. Okay. People interested, and so we're talking about preparing gardens, getting wood chips. But yeah, you need to figure out how to recruit these people, get these interested people active, and get them paired with homeowners, right?
Right, exactly. And so we need homeowners that see the value of it undertaking a project right now, and then find the gardeners that are willing to work with them on that basis. And then, so I do, in addition to that, I have a lady whose background is in branding, I think is what she calls what she does, marketing, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And so she wants to get out of her business and wants to work with us. But, in order to do that, we would need to raise some money. So we're trying to figure out, how we can make an ask. What are we asking for in terms of raising enough money to pay for somebody that's going to be full-time communications director to, do the postings on Facebook and Nextdoor. And she posted a bunch of stuff on Craigslist, and so that's where we've got a lot of our interest. My job has been to invite people, and some places have worked better than others, but we do have a growing list of gardeners.
Yeah, it seems like maybe what you're iterating on right now is that strategy for just kind of bringing all the pieces together. Kind of like what order do you do that in, or what kind of piece of marketing content will kind of draw people in and make them click or something like that.
And it's not my field. So, I'm looking for all the input I can get in terms of marketing.
Okay, so you need some sort of marketing campaign, and it seems like it's like multifaceted, because you've got the marketing campaign to the homeowners, and then you also need to communicate with your gardeners on how they can get involved, and that's kind of a form of marketing as well, like come to the meeting kind of thing.
Right. And so the Christine Webster is her name. She is on my board of directors, and she's also a beekeeper. That's how she got in touch with us. As our old beekeeper had her as a mentor, and when he retired, he put her in touch with us. So that's part of her moving from the marketing world into the regenerative world. But of course, she's a young lady and has bills and still paying her student loans and that sort of thing. So she can't just do it like I did. An old guy retired and just do what I want to do. So somehow we have to figure out how to make it, how to describe it to people who have money that want to invest in a better world for our grandchildren, is the way I usually put it.
Yeah. So the fundraising campaign is also the next kind of product that you need to create.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And then we get to the point where we have enough gardeners and enough homeowners that we can structure the cooperative.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you have enough to kind of get started doing something, without doing that, right?
Yes, if we can get gardeners actually out on the field and making money,
Mm-hmm.
then we're on our way in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. I'm wondering what assumption we're testing with the marketing campaign and the fundraising campaign. I mean, in a way, it's just like whether people want to be involved in this or not. But I feel like maybe it's the assumption of how they want to be involved. That we're assuming that these kind of containers that we're creating, that we want people to be plopped into, you are the gardener, you are the homeowner, this is how this works, that's really what they want.
Sure. And so all the materials we've been developing over these past years is about empowering people to do this for themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you have a limitation if you're young and don't own property. Mm-hmm. Then you don't have a chance to invest mm-hmm. in producing food for yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you're own property but are working 60, 80 hours a week, then you don't really have time to go out in the garden and do it. Mm-hmm. And then we're up against the fact that we're changing a whole pattern of interactions with the way landscaping is done. So it's been a hard one.
Yeah, I don't know. And in a way, you have already kind of tested this and found people who are interested and tried it out. And it was mostly just kind of circumstantial, it sounds like, where like the gardeners just like needed to get a different job or something. It wasn't necessarily like, oh, this just isn't what I want or doesn't work. It was just kind of like, this isn't working out right now. Am I right in that? Like,
I think so.
It seems to be a good idea. It just hasn't quite clicked yet. It actually seems like maybe the assumption is more about the marketing strategy that like. And I haven't seen what kind of marketing you've done already. I mean, you've told me a little bit, like you've posted on Meetup and whatnot. But I guess if we came up with a new marketing strategy, we would just be testing whether that works or not.
Right. And so my thought is that it's going to be tied to individual gardeners making a commitment that this is what they want to do with their career. Mm-hmm. Because it only really makes sense if they go out and knock on doors, which COVID kind of got in the way of that. Mm-hmm. Because they need to find a group of homeowners within a fairly small area if it's going to make economic sense, rather than driving around all over town trying to make $100 mm-hmm. here and $100 there. Mm-hmm. So if they can, if we can give them materials where they can contact their neighbors and be able to build it, but it's only going to work as long as the homeowner and the gardener are a partnership.
Sure.
So
it seems like on this technicality of making it work, you need a critical mass of homeowners, and to some extent gardeners, but more homeowners of having enough of them to make it worthwhile for the gardeners. Like it just doesn't work if you only have one or two.
Right.
Yeah. So we need a marketing strategy that's like so effective that you're going to get like 10 homeowners in one neighborhood.
Right.
Ideally.
And ideally that would be a neighborhood where we have a gardener who is willing to step up and do the work right away. Okay. Right. So we need to land on that strategy where like it's hard for the homeowners to say no
to where if that gardener, maybe they need to be really direct with the people in their neighborhood and really like go, unfortunately with COVID, it's hard to like knock on doors, but ask them really personally in a way that's really compelling to where that they really have a hard time saying no.
Right. And there's, depending on the concerns of the homeowner, we have a lot to work with in terms of species loss and climate change and food insecurity and
yeah. I mean, to me, it seems like if you made that case strongly enough that it would be hard to say no. It just seems like you need to have more success than failure to get that number of homeowners in one small area.
Right. So, we're, that was my last conversation with Christine was, if we're going to get you funded to do this as a full-time job, how are we going to describe that to people for, say if we're going to write a grant application, what is it that we're selling, right? What is it that we're asking to be funded? Which is, I guess, exactly that, this marketing campaign, to be able to find the homeowners that'll justify the gardeners making a commitment.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you kind of got a community together around this, like the homeowners themselves, you might be able to generate enough energy to do some sort of like a fundraiser. COVID makes it difficult, but I'm imagining that eventually you guys could have like, yard sales or bake sales, like stuff like that would generate money for the group. Yeah, there's lots of ways to make money, but anyway, merch, t-shirts,
Sure. You get again, we're back to design, right?
Yeah.
A t-shirt that people want to wear because it speaks to their political leanings or whatever.
It seems like you just need really strong marketing. Okay. So, what infrastructure do you need to start making money?
So the infrastructure is pretty easy in terms of most homeowners are already going to have most of the equipment that we're going to need. It's nice to have a pickup truck where you can haul wood chips and manure and things like that. But if you're in partnership with a homeowner and they're going to take care of that part of it, bringing in the materials, then you're talking about a manure fork, a shovel, and a wheelbarrow.
Yeah. It sounds like you don't need much, or the gardeners or homeowners could provide that. So kind of the minimum amount, it seems like more you need like a crowdfunding site. You need a page. You need whatever kind of landing pages, web pages to market it.
Yeah. And I don't know how that works, but hopefully Christine will figure it out. Or if you're offering, we'll take your advice too.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we should get her on here and have a conversation with her about that.
Sure, we can. I'm sure we can arrange that.
Yeah, and anyone else who's involved who wants to help brainstorm about that. Okay, so yeah, it seems like, and you've already got the nonprofit and like bank accounts and stuff you need. So really just setting up the web pages and marketing material.
Right. And the web page is pretty extensive on the details of how it works.
Yeah, but like landing marketing kind of like.
Yeah, and that part is missing, I'm sure, because it's not working.
Yeah, simple is better. And I know I'm terrible about that. Like lots of information, and then people get overwhelmed. So, yeah, I figure out how to do that. Okay, and then systems to ensure that you're keeping your promise to customers. We've talked a lot about that, but yeah, like your onboarding process, because you're going to be bringing new people on board. So is there anything you need to prepare so that when you get these people to show up to a meeting or something that you can onboard them?
Yeah, so the biggest problem we're having is expectations, right? So even people who have some experience with gardening are woefully uninformed about regenerative agriculture, regenerative landscaping, if we're going to call it that, because they grew up in a command and control culture where you bring in all the resources and create a landscape, and then that's the way it's supposed to be. But that's not the way nature works. So we were talking about small and slow solutions, and some of our homeowners are, expecting a full-blown permaculture design and installation for $100 a month, and that's just not going to happen because we don't have the expertise in our gardeners, and because what we're trying to do is set up a natural succession using the materials that are available on site, rather than buying everything that we think we need for this finished landscape, because that's not the way it's going to work.
Yeah. So how are you gonna teach them?
Well, yeah. So I need gardeners who are committed to making a career of this, so that I can work with them as they have questions. And make them. We talked about having monthly or skills development programs, which monthly is because every season of the year you have different things that you need to do. And so if I can get them to actually come and learn that, I don't know if I've mentioned that in the past, but at one point I had set up a full schedule of events for, well, I think there was only 11 of them because we took December off. But, and the idea was if you take all 11, if you attend all 11 events, you'll have a general idea of how all this fits together. And I don't think we had one person that's ever attended more than one or two, right?
Yeah.
Because they're interested in the chickens or in the greenhouse, or and that's not the important part. The important part is how it all fits together. So that's been a frustration of mine.
Yeah, and I like with that class I was teaching the other day, and I just I only got to teach 3 of them before COVID hit and I had to stop. But I had a plan to, do several, and I finally sat down and finished outlining them all because I was just I was going shooting by the hip, I was just going, making them up as I went. But I finally okay, if I actually taught all of this, it was 6 classes that I came up with to just get the basics out. And then I figure, well, I can just teach these 6 classes over and over again, maybe just pull them out when I know there's going to be people there who haven't taken it yet. I don't know, but kind of do those over and over again, and then just fill in the rest of the time with whatever activities need to be done at that time, and just, explain whatever we're doing as we're doing it. But, it seemed like I could actually get kind of the major concepts out in 6 classes, and just repeat that over and over again. And I guess, the way I've always thought about doing something like this would be, you've got to take all 6 classes. You don't necessarily have to take them in order, but, you're not like a full member until you've taken them all.
Sure. And because you need that information. So the basis of what we're doing is the deep mulch gardening. And I built one 2 years ago now, wherein I took a whole bunch of pictures. So I'm thinking of just doing a step-by-step with the pictures and make it a web page. And then we could I have one of my, she's not actually interested in becoming a gardener, but she comes out and interns with me. And she's a very good artist. And so I talked to her about doing a booklet, something that we could give and as part of the rewards of a crowdfunding or something, with a step-by-step of building a deep mulch garden, with little drawings of the processes and the people doing the activities. Since I don't have pictures of me doing the activity, I just have the cardboard down and then the logs down and then the step by step till the end one, and then the picture in the following spring.
That works. Yeah. Just like online content. That's definitely one way to do it. And then just maybe have them take a little quiz afterwards to prove that they did it. I mean, are you wanting to have some requirements for membership in this cooperative, like finishing certain trainings? What does that look like?
Well, I think we would want to eventually. But the first step is to find somebody who's committed, and then that shouldn't be a problem. They should want to learn, what they're going to be doing for their clients, right? And maybe they think they know, but and the feedback I get is there is a knowledge gap that a lot of people don't recognize.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. And I see kind of another side of it where I think people are like more likely to engage with educational content if it's a little bit more organized and there's a reward system built in. But I don't know. At the same time, I understand what you're saying. Like intrinsically, if somebody's really wanting to do this, they're going to want to learn without needing that. And maybe those are the early adopters that you need to get this going. You don't necessarily want to start with the people who are just like, oh yeah, sure. And it kind of takes them a while to get into it. You want to start with the people who are just like full force into it. Right.
And down the road, then we would say that in order to be able to take on a homeowner by yourself, to have that relationship with an individual homeowner, you will have had to complete these educational courses.
Right. Yeah, you need early adopters. So, yeah, recruiting early adopters. Yeah, who are just totally gung-ho about it. So, I mean, with that, probably your marketing strategy is going to be a lot more targeted. You're going to be looking for people who are already interested in this kind of thing. Yeah, and then maybe once you know where those people are, then you can target your marketing for homeowners in the neighborhoods that they live in.
Yeah, or give them the materials to do the marketing themselves.
Sure. But yeah, it seems like your marketing strategy is not going to be just like broadcasting it to a wide audience. It's going to be more like, looking specifically for these people who are, just going to totally dive into this. They're probably already like activists and, just like have a lot of energy. They're probably already involved in a lot of things. And looking for some way to like make money doing the kind of work that they like to do, and then targeting people in the neighborhoods where they live, which you can totally do. Okay. So I think we answered that question. Okay, so we just answered this next question too. So the people we need are early adopters, people who are gung-ho and ready to go. Gung-ho and ready to go.
Yeah.
And then resources. I mean, do you want to start with the recruitment or do you want to start with the fundraising campaign to pay a marketer?
I can do the recruiting and the training and we have our lead gardener now who's doing all the contacts with the homeowners.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you can do them simultaneously, but then it's different strategies, right? You've got the fundraiser, you want to reach a much broader audience and find some key that says it's worth your while to invest in this project or to donate to this project.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. The fundraising campaign would be more of like a broad, because people might donate to it who, aren't going to be either gardeners or homeowners. They just think, oh, that's a cool idea. Maybe they're in an apartment and they're going to move next year. They're just like not in a position to get involved in any other way. But you could totally do, just broadcast this fundraiser and get lots of support. Maybe even nationally, maybe even outside of Denver, just people who think you're onto something.
Sure. So we have to find a way to describe it so that they understand why it's different and how it's different and why it's important. And I mean, there are so many advocacy groups out there saying that we're going to, I mean, those are the people that raise money, right? That we're going to do this advocacy campaign and change the minds of the world to create a better world. And we're more on, we're going to change the pattern of relationships in your neighborhood and make a better world. And so it's sort of a different focus. And I think that's part of because people are so used to having a hierarchical system where you petition the government to make these changes. We have difficulty saying, no, that's not the way change is going to happen. Change is going to happen when we as individuals change our relationship with the living things around us. So some way to explain that.
Yeah. Totally. Now, as for the type of fundraising campaign, I'm curious about that because some raising campaigns, like, you don't get the money until it's over. If you use like some of these platforms, you have to and sometimes they even want you to meet the goal before they'll give it to you. So you might not want that. You might want to just kind of set up your own site with donations so that you can actually utilize them right away. Because you can pay your marketing person and you can pay for marketing to spread it. And I think it's going to take some iterating to figure out the best way to make it go viral, basically. So you're going to want that money to start boosting it on Facebook or making Google ads or whatever ways you can get it out there. You can spend a small amount of money just to see whether an ad works or not. You can spend like $1 or $5, just to put something out there and see if people click on it. So if you have some money coming in immediately, you can start experimenting and hopefully land on something where it really pays off, and that fundraising campaign can just keep growing and growing, rather than just okay, we're just going to put it out, for a month and just hope it works. It could be kind of an ongoing thing where you're trying lots of different things over time and you don't have that pressure to make all of the money at once.
Right. Well, and we would need to raise enough money to make it worthwhile for Christine or whoever we're going to have in that relationship, in that position.
Mm-hmm. I'd do it with her as a percentage myself. I'd say, whatever money we bring in, maybe up to a certain amount, you get half of it or something. And so you can start paying her right away with whatever comes in, and then whatever's left over would go to pay for other things.
Right. And, for a lot of that boosting on Facebook type stuff, I do have money to fund that. I mean, basically I put in $100 a month. So I've got a bank account that we can do that sort of thing. But plus we take $5 of every homeowner's payment.
Okay. Yeah, because, like, I mean, really, marketing is the number one thing you need to spend money on right now. Just getting out the message. Okay. Okay. How are you going to measure success? What milestones do you need to cross and when? So, like, with this girl, how much does she want to get paid to keep her
Well, she
going?
says she needs about 35,000 a year to do this full time. And that's not necessarily right away because she is an independent consultant doing this work. So she can keep a client or two, but she wants to get out of that. So, whether that's feasible or not, I don't know. But I mean, and that's entirely reasonable. There's a lot of these advocacy groups have an executive director and staff being paid in order and producing materials and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so, I mean, if she's that good, if she's worth $35,000 a year, then she should be able to get a marketing campaign to go, or a fundraising campaign to go viral. I mean, you'll find out if she's worth that much.
Yeah, we will.
I mean, it's kind of up to her. I mean, all this is just putting out a message and seeing if people will give you money. Like, there's not even a product involved. It's just like, do you want to see this idea happen? So it's all about messaging.
Yeah, which means she has a lot to learn as well, because regenerative landscaping is not her background either.
Mm-hmm.
I've given her several tours of the property and explained different parts of it, but it's a way of looking at the world that is unusual or different from the way we were all taught to look at the world.
Yeah. And I would also say that a measurement of success would be the numbers of gardeners and homeowners and the ratio of gardeners to homeowners, which you can put into numbers. What was it again? How many homeowners does each gardener?
Well, so a gardener can have a career if they have 20 homeowners, because that will give them $2,000 a month for half-time work. And then we can use the other half-time to do upselling projects like chicken coops and greenhouses and more extensive installations that require more than that 4 hours a month.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, yeah. That makes sense. And, like, did she give you any kind of a timeline?
We're talking about March, which kind of fits because by March, we're going to have a lot of interest in people wanting to do gardens. And then we have to convince the homeowners that they should be doing deep mulch gardens instead of tilling their soil up and hauling in compost and fertilizers.
Okay, so
raised beds.
March is when you want to launch the recruitment campaign. Is that what you're saying?
No, we want to keep doing that on a continuous basis. But March is when we can expect that we'll have enough interest to take that next step beyond just treading water, as I was saying.
Okay. So, I mean, because you're actively talking to people right now, right, about getting involved in this. So you're kind of already doing the recruitment campaign.
Right.
So what about like launching a crowdfunding campaign? Do you have a timeline for that?
If we had the right message, I think we could. Well, then you were saying we just need to try something and keep trying until we find something that works. And I'll talk to Christine about that. But we could start now too. I mean, whether this is the best time, I don't know. I mean, the world gave a great big sigh of relief when we elected a president that we can actually rely on. But the world still needs a whole lot more change.
Yeah. Well, with the holidays coming up and you're going to need to build web pages and stuff, I'd say January would be realistic for a launch date for a crowdfunding campaign. Sometime in January, and then March is when you would expect gardeners and homeowners to get involved, or expect more gardeners and homeowners to get involved.
And that's when I expect homeowners. Well, that's when people start thinking about gardening again.
So yeah. I mean, I would love to talk to Christine. Was her name right?
Yeah, Christine Webster.
Yeah, let me write that down somewhere. Okay. So yeah, I'd love to talk to her. Do you think we could do that in the next couple weeks?
I think so. I'll contact her and see what her schedule is.
Okay. Yikes. I don't have my work schedule on my calendar for next week. I need to get that on there. So yeah, I mean, next week is Christmas, right? I'm like, whoa, that was fast. And then the week after is New Year's. So, I mean, I don't care. I'm just going to be here at home. So yeah, whenever I'll get my work schedule on there, and whenever you guys can meet, I can. But yeah, I mean, the sooner we can talk, yeah, I'd love to help you launch something sometime in January.
Okay, sounds good. And I'm pretty sure we can do that. I'll just, I will take a look at your schedule and see what dates in there work with her. So.
Okay. So yeah, I was just writing the timeline as the last question on here. It says, make a timeline for the next few weeks or months and set a launch date. So yeah, I think we should do a live stream conversation with her if she's up for that. If she's not, sure, we can whatever. But yeah, and then we can talk through the details of a marketing campaign and crowdfunding campaign. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else we need to talk about. You know what? I'm gonna pop open the canvas here real quick, and I'll show this to the audience, and if you want to open it up on your computer, it's the canvas. I need to fill this in for you, but yeah, I could just scroll through this and see if there's anything that we missed. Key performance indicators. We talked about measuring impact. And yeah, I guess that would just be the number of gardeners, number of homeowners.
Well, and so I was reading, it's actually a blurb about a podcast, but it was about a regenerative farmer, and he says measuring soil carbon is not really the right issue because that's always going to be going up and down. What we really want to do is count the butterflies. And you and I had talked about that. You know, we were talking about birds, but
yeah. I'll put all that in here. Yep, we did all that. Yeah. So this is what I'm going to fill out. I'm just showing the audience. This will be done. If you want to have access to this, join my Patreon. What else could we talk about? Oh, we could ask the audience. Hi, audience. Are you there? Do you have any questions, comments? Say something, please. Teach me something about gardening.
All right. This is what I've learned in the 16 years of unlearning to garden. is that the more you try to control what's going on in your soils and and among your plants, the more you're going to limit their ability to be productive.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to say, because anecdotally, we know that polyculture or companion planting is more productive than a monoculture.
Mm-hmm.
And so I used to tell my gardeners, plant 5 things in a space, 3 of them will do well, and everybody will think you're a great gardener. But this year I've gotten more information of the science behind that, which is the liquid carbon pathway and quorum sensing. Which the liquid carbon pathway is the carbon that is actually tied up in the soil is being exuded out of the roots of living plants
Mm-hmm.
and feeding bacteria and fungi.
Mm-hmm.
And it's those are the mechanisms through which the can't pronounce the word now, gamelin or something like that, that forms the crumb structure of the soil so that it doesn't dissolve in the rain and holds the moisture. All of that is created through that process of the relationship between plant roots and fungi and bacteria, the mycorrhizae bacteria or fungi. And it turns out that there is a well-known function in that biologists know, but agricultural scientists actually apparently don't, is that when you have at least 6 different kinds of plants in a space, you will have a significant increase in the microbial community within your soil.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to do with having the right mix of exudates from the plant roots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Each one is supporting different bacteria and different fungi. Mm-hmm. And all of those different materials are then supporting different higher microbes and worms, and all the way up to the top of the soil ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
So I did several different experiments this last year about, I called it radical polyculture, where, I mean, because in your six plants contributing to the well-being of your soil ecosystem, you can count the things that people consider weeds, you know, the bindweed and the mallow and lamb's quarter and all that stuff that just comes up all by itself.
Yeah.
So that's where we're trying to get our gardeners to go, is to understand that the main thing is just to create the circumstances where Mother Nature can do her work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, you know, the more we just sit back and do that facilitating role instead of a control role, the better things are going to be all the way around.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And the biodiversity of the root system is, yet another reason that I didn't mention in my class of why you would want to leave the weeds, because I was telling them, you know, don't pull out the weeds, you know, unless they're actively choking your plants, you know, just leave them. The reason I was saying was because they, you know, pull in the sunlight and make sugars and inject sugars and carbon into the soil. And so they're feeding the soil. So you want to leave plants, you know, a ground cover as much as possible and not pull them out just to pull them out, right?
Right. So they're the plants are competing above ground. They're competing for the light. But underground, they're cooperating and creating the circumstances that allows life to continue.
Yeah.
So you want to encourage that cooperation. And so my 2 experiments, one of them worked out very well. But then I had another bed where I think I went too radical. And the tomato plants that last year produced 8 gallons of tomato puree, they didn't grow at all this last year. So I, you know, one of the possible reasons is I just wasn't, I was allowing too much competition for the light.
Yeah, it seems like some plants are pickier than others or something, because like I planted okra. I planted a big long row of okra through the middle of a bed, and part of that bed already had some arugula growing in it. But it had kind of like it was kind of past its prime. The arugula was kind of like hanging down, like it wasn't standing up, it wasn't blocking the light. So I thought that these okra would be able to, you know, pop up and shadow and have a succession over the arugula that seemed like done. But then the okra didn't grow, like it got that big and then died where the arugula was, but where there was nothing, it got big and did well.
So yeah, so some combinations work better than other combinations, and that's why it's always an experiment. It's you know, the first rule of permaculture: observe and interact. So next year we're going to select a different 3-5 kinds of seeds.
Yeah, I wonder if okra is one of those plants that actually prefers disturbed soil, and that's why it did better in the empty bed.
Well, that may be. You know, we don't have a lot of success with grains in our deep mulch gardens because they are nature's pioneer plants designed to quickly cover bare soil.
Right.
Although I've seen corn grow well in them. I don't grow corn, so I don't have a lot of experience with it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I also had some sunflowers growing up in the middle of the garden, like big ones. I had both kinds. I had a couple of, like, you know, big, tall 8-footers just randomly shooting up, and then I had some like native, you know, smaller ones with the smaller flowers in a couple of spots, and I just left those, you know, and I wonder if that kind of helped the soil diversity as well, because they would probably spread out their roots pretty far.
Yeah, well, and so people talk about sunflowers being allopathic, but I always grow sunflowers in my gardens because I really like the goldfinches when they come in, when they start to bloom. But I have had problems with planting sunflowers in the same place every time. And so I gave up planting sunflowers, and I just allow some of the volunteers to survive in the garden. And so they're all the smaller native type, although there might be some genes from the Russian giants.
Yeah. I have a lot of 4 o'clocks in my garden. You know, 4 o'clocks, they're flowers. Yeah, they completely took over before I started. They hadn't tended the garden in a year or two, so they had just spread all over the place, and they seed really prolifically. So I had tons and tons of little babies coming up all over. So I did, and they make really big taproots. They're really hard to get rid of once they get established. So I did kind of weed those out because I didn't want them to get those big roots all over the place. But I did actually use some to make the fermented plant juice, the Korean natural farming input. You just take the plants, and you want the new growth tips, and you pack them in with sugar to extract the moisture and preserve the prebiotics. And then when you mix that with water and plant and water the garden, then it both like fertilizes with different nutrients and also gets the whatever probiotics were on the leaves distributed throughout the garden. And I think 4 o'clocks are supposed to be antipathogenic. So kind of using the juice as a foliar spray. I did that. And that seemed to work pretty well. But I'm curious if they're going to, you know, come back all over the place this year. I just made sure they didn't go to seed.
Well, yeah, if you don't let them go to seed, I mean, in a tilled system, you'll have plants that, like the lamb's quarter and things that are in the amaranth, that the seeds don't sprout unless they're exposed to the sun. So every year you till it up and you expose more seeds, so you've got an ongoing problem. But in a deep mulch system where you're not tilling, as long as you don't let things go to seed, you're not going to have to deal with them next year. So So I like lamb's quarter and I like sunflowers. And so I always have plenty of volunteer mulch from those. We also let our lettuces go to seed, and we have volunteer lettuces. And the last 3 years, I've had volunteer beans, which I'd never seen that before. Maybe because I harvested all my beans, but I, you hear in gardening lore that you can't plant beans early because they'll rot in the ground unless it's warm enough. But these beans were hanging on the vine all winter, and they fell into the soil, and they sprouted when it got warm. And so I had volunteer pole beans growing up my sunflowers and mullein, which is the other thing that I leave a few of, just because the bees like it.
Yeah, that's another good use of sunflowers. Totally. Yeah, I'm just worried these 4 o'clocks, the roots are still there, so I think they're just going to come back up out of the roots. I wonder how many times I'll have to chop them down before they finally give up.
Yeah, and we've had 4 o'clocks for a long time that my mother planted on the south side of the house. But they did finally die out. So, but I can't tell whether that was the root or the seed, because they always bloomed every year. So.
Oh, well, that's promising. I'll just keep using them as mulch, but yeah, I just don't want them to take over again. So that's cool. Yeah, anything else you want to enlighten us on in the last few minutes?
Sure. So there are no weeds and there are no pests. That insect eating your plants is not a pest. It is food for the creature that wants to protect your plants. And if you just have patience, nature will balance the system, and you don't have to worry about going out and picking them off. You want to leave them there so that they attract their predator.
Yeah.
And then we just talked about the weeds, or lack of weeds. Every plant is contributing to the well-being of your soil. And if you think it is in the way of something else you'd like to be growing there, you can pull it and make it mulch. And we call that the gift of mulch. But the longer you wait to pull it, the more mulch you're going to have. So you should never be out there weeding. You should tour your garden once a day. And if you see a plant that you think is interfering with some other plant, you can make it mulch. But pull it, leave it where it is. And if you have a healthy soil ecosystem, that will decompose right away, and those nutrients will be available for your plants right away, as opposed to hauling them out and composting and then tilling them in.
Yeah, I totally got the bug thing down this year because we have kale growing and planted it way back in the beginning of the spring, and it got big, and then these bugs started eating it. And, several people said, oh, you should pull those out. And I'm like, no, I don't want to pull out the kale that's getting eaten by bugs, because then the bugs will all go over and eat my squash, for one thing. And for another, I think this kale is healthy enough. It's still growing. I think it's going to fight off the bugs. And lo and behold, when it got cooler, the bugs all died. And now that kale is going crazy. It is so strong. And it's going to keep going all winter. Giving us lots of kale.
Well, great. Yeah. And, the one that people understand is if, you can't have ladybird beetles, you can't have ladybugs unless you grow aphids to feed them. And that's just the way it works. You have to feed them. Otherwise, you're not going to have them.
Yeah, totally. Well, I can't think of anything else to talk about, and I think we started about 5 minutes early, so I think we can go ahead and
we can call this a wrap.
We can call it a wrap, but yeah, thank you. That was great. I love just talking about gardening too. So
yeah, sure.
Cool. Okay, so till next time, This is Regenerative Revolution with Jacki Saorsail and David Braden, and we will be back with other people. It'll be a party.
Yes. Maybe I'll have my lead gardener join us too. See if he's available.
That'd be great. I would love to see how this works with, like, I've had 2 people. There's a couple that I'm coaching, but I haven't had more than that. So I'd love to see how that works.
All right.
So, okay. See you next time. Bye.